Welcome back, WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We're usually calm and we're almost always local, but we're going to step out of market here to talk to some of our friends and go old school WNST. This guy is in Boston. He is the editorial director and founder of the Boston Sports Journal. I know him as a longtime insider for the National Football League at Sports Illustrated, as well as the Boston Globe, and even parts of Milwaukee, where he once had my dream job of Richie Cunningham at the Milwaukee Journal. We welcome Greg Bedard back on. You can follow him, tens of thousands do, at Greg A. Bedard on the Twitter thing. Bedard, you're in a sports business, right? I'm in a sports business. Sports has fed our families for a long time, for better or worse, sometimes better than others. You've been covering the Patriots a long time, so it's always fun up there for you. But I'm watching them do this, and, I've moved my brand a little bit talking about politics and making the world a better place and Baltimore Positive and all the things I'm doing. But I'm looking at sports and saying they shouldn't play sports. Like, I'm looking at baseball, I'm looking at football right now, and I know you're in the sports business and your things revolve around this. Where do you sit on all this? Because I'm trying to call my smartest, bestest friends who are in the sports industry and saying, are we wishing for something we ought not be wishing for right now?
I don't know, Ness. I mean, it's a good question. I don't really give it a whole lot of thought. I've always, in pretty much everything, it's as far as sports and media, I kind of go with, when it's in front of me, I cover it, and
fair enough.
I don't really worry about whether things will happen or won't happen. It's just what does happen. Now, I mean, this could be a long-ranging discussion, but I mean, basically where I fall is, this country completely screwed up their reaction to this pandemic. Things for me start with, you can't do anything unless you have great testing and great contact tracing, and we still do not have that.
Well, we haven't tried. We haven't put we put a serious effort to put human beings on the moon in the 1960s, right? Like we put serious efforts into going into Afghanistan and whatever we do. You put serious effort into doing a sports project. A serious effort. You and I know what it feels like to have a serious effort. The guy running the country's never put a serious effort in anything but bullshitting people. I mean, that's been a 50-year tradition there. So we shouldn't stand shocked here.
Yeah, and if people are pissed off that, their sports might not happen, there's only one person and sort of one entity to blame, and that's the White House. I mean, that's flat out the truth. I don't care what side of the aisle that you're on. That's just the truth. I mean, if somebody else competent was in power, then the most immediate thing that they would have done was like, well, we can't know anything about it, and we can't control it if we don't know who does and doesn't have it. And so it started there, and it's...
Well, you also had the idiot governor of Georgia that 8 weeks into the pandemic had no idea what asymptomatic... I don't think he understood the meaning of the word asymptomatic. Literally, that...
Well, I mean, that's why when there's a pandemic, which by its definition affects, people across the globe and across countries, then you need a national program to deal with it, and you don't leave it up to idiot governors sometimes who shouldn't have been elected. And so, I mean, that's where we start. I think it's the only reason why, say, football is iffy and why we haven't started in other sports, especially baseball. Baseball should have been playing long ago, considering it's naturally a socially distanced sport. Whether they should be playing or not, I mean, that's not really, I don't really have an opinion on that. I mean, for my business, would I love them to play? Yeah, but I mean, I don't really care about that. I mean, I care about, people being healthy and things like that. And if my business goes under, my business goes under, and I'll go get another job. I mean, that's the way things go. I mean, it just happens. So, I mean, should we be playing? I don't really know. I mean,
well, can they finish? I mean, Greg, let me rephrase that as the questionnaire here. Like, can they get to a Super Bowl in Tampa with integrity? Is there any chance that's going to happen? My opinion on that is no. And the reason there's going to be the integrity is they're going to lose franchises. They're going to have 23 cases in Dallas one, or wherever, and it's going to shut down franchises. So I don't believe they can have a season that finishes with integrity in this environment. Therefore, I shouldn't say you shouldn't start the journey because you can't walk to California unless you take the first 2 steps. I get that, but I just don't. I think this is really ill-advised. I think this is dumb.
Well, I mean, if I were in charge, I would have. If I was the czar of sports in this country, I would have told them we are not considering starting up until January 1st, which would increase the chances of a vaccine and a lot more information, gleaned from this, this disease. I mean, we still don't really know. We're learning new things about it every day in terms of how it's mutated and things like that. And I just would have given it time and distance. And there's no reason why the NFL say couldn't start it in January. Everybody has indoor facilities. I mean, we could figure that out. And that's what I would have done. But, they're going to try. Do I think they're going to get to a Super Bowl? I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to have to start a little bit later, which I think they should do. I think that, it comes down to, our players going to be responsible, our coach is going to be responsible.
No.
Where do they go once they're out of the facility, things like that. They have a responsibility if they want to get paid that they have to conduct themselves in a certain manner. And if they just go to the facility with a lot of testing and then they just go home, there shouldn't be a whole lot of issues. This is controllable. You can mitigate this if you're smart and responsible. But then again, I think only about 25% of NFL players and coaches are probably responsible. So I don't know.
Greg A. Bedard, my pal up in Boston at the Boston Sports Journal, long time at SI and covering things in Boston. I guess if I'm going to talk football with you and not pathogens, which it does seem trite to talk about like Cam Newton as like you're writing about it. I still think like if Cam Newton's still quarterbacking when the Ravens get there in November, because I have a flight, up to Logan in November, I don't think I'll be on it. And but the Cam Newton thing and everything that's going on in the organization, this is the year covering the Patriots really gets interesting, right?
This is the year. Yeah. Like they've been boring for the previous, 19 years.
Well, we've always wondered what life without Tommy looks like, other than with a broken leg, right? I mean, this is the afterlife. You had to wait 20 years to cover this season, right, Greg, right?
Yeah. I mean, you also wonder what the team's going to be like with Tim Tebow here and after a double murderer. And, assorted other things with Randy Moss here. And, I mean, to me, this is, yeah, sure. I mean, it's the first year after Brady. That's significant. And it's, Cam Newton is among the candidates to replace him. But I mean, I just start there. I mean, he may be Cam Newton. He may be the 2015 MVP, but this is a guy who really didn't play at all last season. And his previous 2 seasons ended with needed shoulder surgery, and got a minimum contract that is easily cuttable. So I don't know, and I don't think the team knows. They have no idea what they're getting in Cam Newton and whether he's going to win the job and whether it's going to be Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer, depending on how long training camp is. But, yes, is it going to be different? Is it going to be a different cast of characters? Yes, but it's still the Patriots. It's still Belichick, and they're still going to be compelling.
Do you remember back when the Astros cheating was like the biggest story going? Like, right, 2 days before COVID,
Yep.
Everything I'm doing that week. I'm talking to Ken Singleton about the Yankees and the Astros. I'm talking to the Astros beat writer. I'm talking to John McClain about baseball back then. It just stopped, right? The cheating thing has sort of been put away. The Red Sox obviously involved in that. You're up there covering that, and they've had the tumultuous offseason as well. Baseball in general used to sort of rule the roost up in your marketplace. I remember that, and then the Patriots came along, and the other things that have come along. But where's baseball in Boston? I mean, you know where it is in Baltimore, Greg. You don't need me to tell you that if they were to play and open the place, it won't look a lot different than if they don't open the place. They were on pace for another 110-loss season this year. Now they're going to lose 20 and 40, whatever they're going to be here. But Boston, they've kept the light on for Major League Baseball, literally, for a long, long time. I'm extremely worried about baseball. We have 1 year left on our lease here, Greg. 30 years at Camden Yards. We have a parade 38 miles to the south of here, and a team that's got a lot more money, a lot more wisdom, a lot more star power, a lot more of a lot more in Washington. Boy, the Orioles are a mess, and then I look up in Boston and say, well, they're a mess on the field, kind of, sort of, but they're a mess with $200 million a year. We're a mess with no fans here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Red Sox have definitely fallen off. I mean, even, with their recent World Series championship, they're still a distant second or third. I mean, it's sort of, it vacillates between them and the Celtics, who's number two in the market, depending on how well the Celtics are playing. There's no question that right now the Celtics are number two because nobody expects anything of the Red Sox. I mean, with, no Mookie Betts, no David Price. Eduardo Rodriguez has COVID-19. We don't know when he's going to show up. So the expectations are very low. This is a short 60-game sprint is probably the best case scenario for this team because they do still have a decent amount of offense and they could get hot given that it's going to be late July, August, and September when normally those are good hitting months. Could the offense carry them to a wild card? Maybe. But, there's a lot of disillusionment, up here with the team, how it's been conducted, even though, the ownership group has done great things. They're kind of tone deaf, and that's sort of turned off a lot of the diehards around here. But, we are certainly a market where there are passionate Red Sox fans, but they're really old, and it's fading. And so, you just wonder, how long it's all going to last to be successful up here.
What have they done right and wrong the last 15 years in regard to trying to turn younger people? I mean, that would be the one place where I keep thinking, like, it's hanging on. Our kids still playing baseball there. I mean, Greg, down here, every kid's got a lacrosse stick, right? Like, that's part of the culture of Baltimore now.
Lacrosse has been huge here. Yep.
And I guess it's soaked into all sorts of places, not called Baltimore, Denver, and maybe even Canada was big for lacrosse, but lacrosse is everywhere now.
Yeah, I mean Massachusetts, especially, has long been a hotbed for lacrosse. My high school, Lincoln Sudbury, outside of Boston, when I was in high school, to this day, they've been a power.
Do the hockey kids play lacrosse or no? Is it one sport?
Yes.
Thing? Okay, I would think they probably do.
Yeah, because my son actually, I'm at a defenseman camp right now. He's on the ice, and a lot of his teammates go from hockey to lacrosse. I'm still a diehard baseball guy, and we're a baseball family, and have been for generations, and so. My kids play baseball and softball, but a lot of kids play lacrosse because it's faster and it's not a lot of sitting around. And the Red Sox, Major League Baseball as a whole. I mean, I don't think the Red Sox are different in that. I just don't think they've done a great job marketing to kids. And when it comes to getting kids involved in the game and making them excited, you have to make it accessible to them. And the Red Sox just have. I mean, it's just, I never go to games anymore. They're too expensive for me. I mean, for a family of four to go to Fenway and sit in decent seats where you're not baking in the center field bleachers, I mean, it's going to cost you you're talking $500 to $750 just to go to the game, let alone parking and food and all that stuff. And, the lack of day games and playoff games that are on late at night. I mean, all this stuff is just, it just goes against, if you're trying to get future people involved so that they come and make your sport sustainable, you have to make it accessible and exciting for the younger people. And baseball just doesn't even come close to doing that.
Greg Bedard's been my friend for a couple decades, covering all things sports, mainly the National Football League, now everything at Boston Sports Journal. You can follow him there. He's also out on Twitter at Greg A. Bedard. For you with sports in our lives and doing this, and I've had the station since 98 and done radio since 91, I had never, ever considered sports stopping, right? Like the whole notion that the thing could stop on a dime and not come back, and that there not be games on. I guess I'm glad I'm 51 when it's happening, Greg, and not 21. Maybe things would have changed, but when they start sports back up, there's this feeling for the people who miss it so much that they want it. They'll watch it in an empty arena. They watched soccer. They're watching golf now or MMA or whatever they're into. And then there's the other people that, like Dennis Kolatzis, one of our partners here with Coons Ford, said, we lived 13 years without the NFL here. We can live 13 months. You know what I mean? Like, that's an old line Baltimore thought. But there's also the thought of, well, I've lived 5 months without sports. I miss concerts more. You know what I mean? If you could give me a night with the Stones at FedEx or a night with the Washington NFL franchise at FedEx, give me the Stones. Give me a night at Merriweather with the Pretenders or something like that, more so than an Oriole game against the White Sox. I think you start to measure this, right? Where you say, that $700 night that I spend at Fenway Park, how does that measure up against a $700 night with Mick Jagger or a $600 night with Eddie Vedder or whatever you would spend, or a weekend at Cape Cod or whatever you spend your money on? But sports has always been there. It's always been accessible. It's always been there, not just for you and me making a living, but for anybody that wants a game. It's on. Now that it's been taken away, I'm beginning to wonder whether we're all going to run back to it or whether we're going to want to run back to something else we can't do or we haven't been able to do, like maybe hug our kids,
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for, and then, I try to look for the silver lining in anything. And I think for me and my wife, this virus has given us a chance to really hunker down as a family, and at a time where I have twin boy-girl 13-year-old twins who are very active, and in a lot of different sports and things like that. And so normally, and we're back to it right now with my daughter playing on 2 softball teams, my son on a baseball team, and at hockey camp. But for a lot of this time, it was a good sort of moment for us to pause and take a deep breath, because pretty soon, they're in high school and they don't want to be around us, and then they're off to college, and that's it. So, I'm all for a proponent of people just, taking time with their family and because that's always the most important thing. But as far as sports coming back, I mean, I'm not sure, but, you look at baseball and sort of when they halted, it didn't even have a World Series one year, and people came back from that, and they've come back from player strikes in the NFL, and the NHL had that throwaway season, and people came back. I mean, people always come back to sports. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be right away, and it might be a slow buildup, but sports have always been around. I have a hard time after seeing what we've been through before and people coming back. I don't see why they wouldn't do that this time around.
Well, I certainly hope for your sake and my sake and all of our sakes that we get back to something normal, man. I miss the owners' meetings. I miss the fact that 2 weeks from now we'd be blowing whistles out in camp and sweating it out. And I guess the players are going to go out there and do that and zoom, and maybe we'll have some baseball games on the telly here next weekend. There's a rumor the Orioles open at Fenway Park next week, Greg.
That is true. I have heard that rumor. I didn't know Baltimore still had a baseball team, but I'm interested to see what they put out there on the field.
Well, the other part of this is weird. My wife and I drove down to Nags Head for a little vacation about 3 weeks ago. And while we drove the back road, so we drove through Bowie, we drove through Norfolk, and we drove through Salisbury, which are, the three, or along with Frederick, if I were to go west, would be pretty much the Orioles farm system. What baseball has done to its minor leagues and its farm system. And, I know Charlie Steinberg way back as well, and Pawtucket, and what they're doing in Worcester, and, what's going on up around there. But the minor league thing, which was the cheaper way to go see Adley Rutschman play in Aberdeen and all that, baseball has even managed to screw that up, right? I mean, it's kind of insane in that way that they're restricting the flow of the mojo of the sport for players and fans and small towns alike.
No question. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the minor leagues. We always go to games every year. It's certainly the more economical way to see games as a family. I mean, we're always down at Providence Bruins games instead of Boston Bruins games. Same with the Paw Sox. I'm not looking forward to seeing the debut of the Worcester Red Sox the Woo Sox because, I just know Larry Lucchino is just going to bleed every single dollar out of me when I go there from, at Pawtucket, parking you could find free parking and, it's cheap tickets and cheap hot dogs, and you just know it's not going to be that in Worcester in a brand new ballpark. But, it's very sad. I mean, baseball, my uncle played in the majors, he played in the minors and, ran a baseball school for years, and I played in college, and it's just been something that's been in my family. And, it definitely saddens me that, that we only have in my town this year, we only have about 26, 27 kids playing baseball, on the Big Diamond for the first time this summer. And, but baseball needs all the help it can get, and it starts with the minor leagues, and we need that back. And what Major League Baseball is doing to it, it's just it's unfortunate for sure.
Greg, hang in there, man. I hope to sip a beverage with you at a Super Bowl sometime down the line. I don't necessarily believe that's going to be in Tampa in February. But if it is, we have a chance with Lamar. We have a better chance than you for the first time, like in 20 years. It's awesome.
But let's win a playoff game first, and then maybe we'll talk.
Yeah, you want to poop on Lamar before we go out? You want to take your
No, I'm fine with Lamar. I mean, I think. I wrote about this, at the time. I squarely put the blame on Jim Harbaugh for that.
You mean John? Don't blame Jim.
John, sorry.
John would love to blame Jim.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought his approach in that game, and I thought that he did not. You have to realize what kind of game you are in. You just can't. You can't. One size fits all. Well, we went for it on fourth down all the time during the year. You can't just ramrod, that into every single game. I mean, I think that John, he should have quickly realized that his team was rusty from the layoff, and they were in a tussle with a Titans team that was on a roll from the end of the regular season. They had just steamrolled the Patriots. This was a different game, and he should have managed it that way. He should have bought his team time to get their legs back under them instead of just trying, we're just going to go for it because that's who we are. It's dumb in my opinion, and it let down the team, and it didn't give them a chance to properly show what they can do. And I'm a huge fan of Lamar Jackson's. He is limited as a passer, and there are ways to defend him, but Harbaugh let the team down in that game, in my opinion, and was to blame for what happened last year.
Well, it feels like a long time ago, and it feels like they're going to try to play, and it's all parts of this are really weird, but I'm on record as saying if they can actually make it through a season, we'll have a chance to be there in Tampa, but I am very, very skeptical because like Dr. Fauci said day one, the virus makes the rules. I hope you and your family stay safe amidst this summer. I hope you get down to the Cape for a couple of days for crying out loud, Greg. And
I don't know about that.
Yeah, have a little bit of sunshine. Do something up there. And we'll be in touch, and we'll be playing some baseball next weekend and watching via satellite, right?
Sounds good.
Appreciate you, Greg Bedard. No one covers the National Football League better than Greg. A long time at Sports Illustrated. Now the founder and editorial director and a brother-in-arms up there in Boston doing the independent thing at bostonsportsjournal.com. If you love Boston sports, know anybody that does, buy him a subscription. They'll love it. bostonsportsjournal.com. The way to find Greg, as well as on Twitter at Greg A. Bedard. Father, sportsman, sports writer, and Lamar lover. There he goes, Greg Bedard. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the world travels on your mobile device, and building a bigger and better platform for you. We're calm, we're local most of the time, and we're always Baltimore positive.